The unsettling quiet, an introduction to the space within. There is a particular quality of silence that arrives not as an absence, but as a presence. It's the silence you hear when you stare at your phone, your thumb hovering over the screen, scrolling through a constellation of names and faces. And you realize with a calm, almost clinical clarity, that there is no one you genuinely wish to disrupt. This isn't about a lack of people. It's about a surplus of feeling. The impulse to connect hits a wall, not of sadness, not of bitterness, but of a profound, energy-saving realism. You calculate, without consciously calculating, the emotional expenditure required, the careful listening, the measured responses, the gentle management of mutual expectations, the slow surrender of your precious, fragile inner quiet. And in that moment, the math simply doesn't work. The cost feels higher than the potential return. This realization is deeply uncomfortable to sit with because it contradicts a fundamental narrative we've been fed since childhood. That a vibrant social life is the ultimate sign of health, that being surrounded is synonymous with being valued, and that those who walk with a smaller tribe must be deficient in some way, lacking warmth, charisma, or the simple will to try. But for you, that story has never quite fit. It feels like a shirt that's tailored for a different body. You don't struggle to decode people. If anything, you understand them too quickly, too deeply. You are a silent witness to the microcurrents beneath the conversation. The slight tightening around a smile that doesn't reach the eyes. The hidden weight in a casual sigh. The way a sentence is left hanging, heavy with unspoken meaning. You don't just hear words. You absorb the emotional weather that comes with them. And this hyper-awareness doesn't necessarily make you crave more interaction. It makes you impossibly, irrevocably selective. It leads to the questions that echo in the quiet. Why does a simple coffee chat leave you feeling like you've just run a mental marathon? Why does the cheerful noise of a party feel like a physical pressure against your skin? Why can being in a room full of laughing people sometimes feel like the loneliest experience of all? You notice your own restraint, the ease with which you could send a text, make a plan, insert yourself into the stream of life, and the powerful, deliberate pause that holds you back. It's not misanthropy. It's a form of self-preservation. You've tried the other way. You've performed the scripts, laughed at the appointed times, asked the right questions, and left feeling like a hollow shell, curiously empty, not hurt, not rejected, just depleted. So you made a different choice, the choice of quiet. And with that choice came a double-edged sword, a profound sense of relief, and the quiet, persistent judgment, both from the world and from a part of yourself that still wonders, is this normal? Am I broken? Is this solitude, or is it isolation? The strange paradox is that you don't feel disconnected from humanity. You feel disconnected from the noise that so often passes for connection. You sense the invisible architecture of most friendships, the unspoken contracts demanding immediate replies, constant emotional availability, a performative consistency of presence. These aren't rules written down. They are vibrations in the air, and your internal tuning fork resonates with them intensely, so intensely that you sometimes withdraw preemptively before anyone can even make a demand. This isn't fear, it's foresight. You have learned, through weary experience, what happens when you ignore your own internal limits. You know how quickly genuine closeness can curdle into obligation, and how obligation, for a person like you, doesn't feel like love. It feels like a weight slowly settling on your chest. People often mistake a small circle for a closed heart, but from the inside, it feels like the opposite. Your heart feels open, almost dangerously so, a raw nerve exposed to the world. That openness simply isn't distributed indiscriminately. You don't desire 10 shallow connections that scatter your energy. You ache for one or two where you can exist without a performance, where silence is a shared language, not a problem to be solved. And such connections are rare treasures. So in their absence, you choose the quiet. But this quiet you cultivate is not a void. It is an observatory. From this still point, you watch the social world with a curator's eye. You see how much energy is spent managing impressions, how often dialogue is just dual monologue, how desperately people rush to fill a silent space, terrified of what it might contain. Your comfort in that silence can make others uneasy. They ask, "Why are you so quiet?" or urge you to put yourself out there. You rarely have an answer that satisfies them, because the truth sounds, to conventional ears, almost insulting. Being alone feels cleaner than being misunderstood. To say it aloud risks sounding arrogant, defensive, or pathetic, so you hold it inside. And so, gradually, without drama, the circle tightens. You stop pouring energy into connections that require constant translation of your inner world. You stop chasing those who only brighten in your presence when you provide a service, listening, fixing, affirming. You let the friendship sustained purely by inertia and old history gently fade. What remains is a space. And space, in a world obsessed with clutter, is profoundly confronting. In that spaciousness, you begin to notice the very architecture of your own being, how you process conversations for days, how you physically feel the emotional residue of interactions, how a calm exterior often masks a tempest of internal processing. You realize every social exchange has a metabolic cost for you, not because people are cruel, but because you are by design an absorber. And when you have few friends, the world assumes you feel rejected. But rejection isn't the core emotion. What you feel is protected from having to numb your sensitivity to stay comfortable for others, protected from the exhausting labor of explaining your need for solitude, protected from relationships that are perpetual withdrawals from your account with minimal deposits. Yet, an unease lingers. It rises when you scroll through curated glimpses of camaraderie and collective joy. For a fleeting second, the old narrative whispers, maybe you are broken, maybe you are missing the point of life. But then you do a simple thought experiment. You place yourself squarely in the middle of that bustling, noisy, vibrant scene. You imagine the chatter, the relentless social navigation, the surface-level exchanges, and your entire nervous system subtly recoils. It's not longing you feel, it's resistance. You don't envy their quantity of connections. You envy their apparent ease in maintaining them. You wonder why that ease has always felt like a dialect you can understand but never truly speak. A pattern emerges, subtle yet consistent. People tend to confess to you. Strangers on planes, acquaintances at parties. They find themselves sharing secrets, fears, and hopes with you. They feel seen, heard, and profoundly understood in your presence. Yet, few stay, not because you push them away, but because staying requires a willingness to meet you in the deep water where you permanently reside. A depth most people visit only occasionally, on vacation from their own surface-level lives. So the connections fade, like echoes in a canyon. And you are left with a shorter contact list, but an unmistakably clearer internal space. That clarity doesn't feel like loneliness. It feels like stepping into a cool, quiet room after hours in a deafening, overcrowded party. Your ears ring for a while, adjusting to the new, real silence. And in that adjustment, a truth becomes luminous. Having few friends wasn't an accident, a failure, or a streak of bad luck. It is the direct, logical result of something intrinsic to your being. It was shaped by the very way you perceive, process, and protect the fragile ecosystem of yourself. This understanding is still forming, not yet fully articulated. You only know in your bones that what looks like isolation from the outside does not feel like isolation on the inside. It feels, perplexingly, like alignment. And that is precisely where the true discomfort begins. Because if this feeling of alignment is real, If this quieter path is not a consolation prize, but a conscious, albeit difficult choice, then the entire cultural assumption that more friends, better life begins to crack and crumble. And if that foundational belief cracks, something else must be built in its place. Something you haven't fully named yet. Not clearly, not honestly. So you are left sitting in your quiet observatory with a central vibrating question. What is it exactly that sets apart those who feel deeply and connect sparingly? And why does this solitary path, though often heavy, feel so unnervingly, undeniably right? Part 2. The roller coaster. The immersive inner world of the profoundly selective. The ascent, the clarity of cost. Let's strap in. The ride begins with a slow, clicking ascent. A climb into heightened awareness. This is where you stop asking, what's wrong with me? And start observing, how does my system actually work? You begin to map the internal economy of your energy. You notice how a casual, friendly lunch isn't just a meal. It's a full sensory and emotional download. You're not just discussing the weather or work. You're unconsciously tracking the flicker of disappointment in their eyes when they mention their weekend, the slight edge in their voice when they speak of a colleague, the way their laughter doesn't quite dissolve the tension in their shoulders. Your mind is a silent, multi-threaded processor, analyzing content, subtext, body language, and emotional frequency all at once. Most people have a filter, a semi-permeable membrane that lets in the words but strains out the heavier emotional particulates. You, it seems, were born without this filter. You absorb it all. This isn't a choice or a skill. It's a configuration that turns every social interaction from a simple exchange into an immersive experience. Think of it like this. For others, socializing is like wading in a lake. For you, it's like diving into the ocean depths with all its pressure, its currents, its hidden life. The dive is beautiful, but you can't stay down there as long, and you need much more time to surface and decompress. This is the fundamental, often invisible, cost. The roller coaster climbs higher as you realize your solitude isn't about disliking people. It's about respecting your own limited capacity for immersion. You are precise in your connections because you are acutely aware of the price of admission. The first drop, precision, not avoidance. Now comes the first plunge, the stomach-dropping moment of societal misunderstanding. From the outside, your selectivity looks like avoidance. The world sees you declining invitations, taking days to reply, preferring a book to a bar, and it labels you shy, aloof, antisocial, afraid. But here's the twist in the track. Avoidance is driven by fear of what is outside. Precision is driven by awareness of what is inside. You are not hiding from others. You are safeguarding a fragile, complex inner world. You pull back not because you anticipate rejection, but because you foresee depletion. You've learned the hard way that not every connection deserves unfettered access to your soul's ecosystem. You've learned that being universally liked often requires sanding down your edges, turning down your sensitivity dial, becoming a paler, simpler version of yourself. And that dilution, that self-betrayal, feels infinitely worse than any solitude. As the coaster races through this inverted loop, the forces push you inward. You realize your bonding mechanism is different. Many people bond through shared activity, watching games, going to concerts, hitting the gym. You bond through resonance, a meeting of minds, a shared philosophical wavelength, a mutual recognition of depth, an unspoken agreement to honor the unspoken. These connections are not found in crowds. They are discovered in quiet corners, in conversations that spiral inward, not outward. They are rare, so you wait. And this waiting, from the panoramic view of the climb, looks like passive isolation. But from the visceral reality of the ride, it feels like active integrity. You would rather stand alone, fully yourself, than stand in a crowd, feeling utterly, invisibly alien. The corkscrew, the comfort of your own mind. The track now spirals, a corkscrew that represents the dizzying comfort you find in your own company. This is a trait that baffles the extroverted world. It's not that your thoughts are always peaceful or pleasant. You contend with the same storms of anxiety, doubt, and replay as anyone. The difference is, you have become an expert navigator of your own inner climate. You have had to. With fewer external voices constantly chiming in, you've developed a rich, internal processing system. You don't need to talk everything out to understand it. You can think, feel, and synthesize in the quiet laboratory of your own mind. Your sense of reality is not dependent on constant social feedback. This self-containment is a superpower, but like all rare powers, it is misunderstood as a weakness, a sign that you don't need people. As you whirl through this section, another jarring truth comes into sharp focus. You have a Geiger counter for transactional energy. You can sense with unnerving accuracy when a relationship is based on what you can provide rather than who you are. You feel it when attention is conditional on your usefulness as a listener, a problem solver, a source of validation. This transactional buzz, this quiet hum of exploitation, exhausts you more than outright conflict. It's a slow psychic drain. So, you step back, not with a dramatic confrontation, but with a gradual, graceful retreat. You simply stop showing up to be used. The world often misinterprets this as flakiness or disinterest. It is neither. It is the ultimate act of discernment, a silent editing of your life script to remove characters who are only there for their own subplot. The banked turn, proximity versus connection. Now the ride takes a wide, banked turn, offering a new perspective. This is the realization that proximity and connection are not the same thing. Our culture conflates them. We are told that being around people will cure loneliness. But you have been lonely in a packed room. You have felt more isolated shaking hands and exchanging smiles than you ever have in your own silent apartment. So you cease to chase proximity for its own sake. You no longer believe that simply inserting yourself into social spaces will magically lead to belonging. You are waiting for alignment, for that rare, resonant frequency that makes true contact possible. From the outside, this waiting looks like loneliness. From the inside, in the heart of the turn with the G-forces pressing down, it feels like the most honest thing you've ever done. It is the refusal to fake it. The final inversion, identity beyond the social mirror. Here comes the most disorienting element, the final inversion. This is where you are turned completely upside down, and everything looks different. In this position, you realize that you do not construct your identity in the mirror of social validation. Your worth is not a tally of birthday messages or wedding invitations. Your metric is more intimate, more demanding, asterisk. How intact do I feel after this interaction? Do I feel expanded or contracted? More myself or less? For you, most social offerings are like junk food, immediately gratifying but leaving you malnourished and sluggish. So you opt out, not permanently, not with cynicism, but with the clarity of a conscious consumer of your own life force. And here, at the peak of the inversion, hangs the unsettling, pivotal truth. The track seems to halt. If you were to suddenly have a wide, bustling circle of friends tomorrow, something fundamental would have to give. Either you would have to anesthetize your sensitivity to stop feeling the emotional currents so acutely, or you would have to silence the inner voice that warns you of depletion. You have tried both. You know what happens. You become a ghost in your own life, a pleasant echo of a person smiling on schedule while quietly disappearing. The cost of that social wealth is personal bankruptcy, so you choose the quieter economy. You accept the smaller circle, the blank spaces on the weekend calendar, the evenings where the only conversation is the rustle of pages or the hum of your own thoughts. Not because you glorify isolation, but because this scaled-down version of a social life is the only one that does not ask you to abandon the very core of who you are. Part 3. The return to station restraint as a rare strength. The roller coaster slows. The adrenaline fades into a steady, thrumming awareness. You return to the station, not to the same place you started, but changed. The vibrating question has been answered not with a simple phrase, but with the entire experience of the ride. You are not flawed. You are configured differently. Your empathic depth, your processing intensity, your low tolerance for inauthenticity, these are not social disabilities. They are the parameters of a rare and specific being. The question that now replaces the old, aching, "Why so few friends?" is more potent and more honest. What would I have to surrender about myself to have more? Sit with that inquiry. Let it resonate in the new quiet you've carved out. The answer, when it comes, is not a list of social skills to learn, but a catalog of sacred traits you'd have to sacrifice. Your depth of feeling, your need for meaning, your honesty with yourself, your hard-won peace. This realization is the destination. What looks from the outside like solitude is, from the inside, actually restraint. It is the conscious, daily decision to not scatter your precious attention, to not spend your emotional currency on cheap transactions, to not confuse noise for music. And restraint, when it is chosen from a place of self-knowledge rather than forced by fear, is one of the rarest and most underrated forms of strength in our frantic, connection-obsessed world. It is the strength of the deep-sea diver who knows their limits, rather than the party swimmer who never leaves the shallows. It is the strength of the artisan who works with fine, rare materials, rather than the factory that prioritizes volume. Your social world is not empty, it is curated. Your heart is not closed, it is protected. Your life is not lacking noise, it is rich with meaning that you can actually hear. So let the quiet be your companion, not your adversary. Let the selectivity be your compass, not your shame. The roller coaster ride of understanding has brought you here, to a place of alignment where the external view no longer dictates the internal truth. You have felt the cost, navigated the misunderstandings, and emerged with the core equation. To be truly connected to others, you must first remain unshakably connected to yourself. And that connection, that fierce and tender loyalty to your own inner truth, is the most profound friendship you will ever cultivate. It is enough. It is more than enough. It is everything.